Hello everyone, today we are discussing religious reforms for the personality study of Akhenaten from the Year 12 Ancient History Syllabus, and we are achieving this by focusing specifically on the hymn to the Aten. Our agenda is to discuss the religious policy and reforms through the lens of the hymn to the Aten. This is our best preserved text of the nature of the Aten religion, and it informs much of our understanding of religious changes during the reign of Akhenaten. As a result, we will read through the text and discuss its implications, so please note that this video is very text heavy, but by the end of it, I hope you have a deeper understanding of the hymn to the Aten. The hymn to the Aten is often quoted as the fundamental statement of Aten religion. Why is this? The beliefs expressed in the cult of the Aten are not described completely in any one ancient source. However, the hymn to the Aten, as well as scenes and inscriptions found in the Amarna tombs, are crucial evidence for the nature of Aten religion. The famous hymn to the Aten is preserved in various tombs, though the most complete copy is in the tomb of Ai. These hymns are usually carved on the thicknesses of doorways, though there is an example from the tomb of Mahu, where it is written on two stelae. Interestingly, some scholars believe that Akhenaten himself composed this text, as it stresses Akhenaten's role as an intermediary between the Aten and the populace. To understand the importance of the hymn, we will now read through it. The text begins with titles of the Aten. It reads, Adoration of Ra Harkhate, who rejoices in light land, in his name of Shu, who is Aten, living forever, the great living Aten, who is in Jubilee, the Lord of all that the disk encircles, Lord of house of Aten in Akhenaten. Note here the Aten has been linked to the other gods, namely another sun god and Shu, who is a primordial god. This itself is interesting and indicates that the Aten was paramount and had consumed some of the qualities of other Egyptian deities. So first off, we have evidence that not everything was thrown out the door and Egyptian traditions were transformed to accommodate the new religion. The next section introduces the king and queen. The king, Akhenaten, beautiful of forms like Ra, sole one of Ra, the son of Ra, who lives by Ma'at, great in his lifetime. His beloved great queen, perfect is the beauty of Aten Nefertiti, who lives in health and youth forever. Curiously, again, we have references to more Egyptian gods. We have Ra, another sun-disk deity, and Ma'at, who was a goddess of truth and order. Jan Assmann has suggested that now Akhenaten himself embodies Ma'at as an ethical authority. Ma'at no longer stands for the goddess, but the new teachings of the king. Thus, if you listen to the teachings of the king, say for example, and follow his new religion, you live according to Ma'at. This is huge and basically impels the ancient Egyptians to adhere to this religion if they want to lead ethical lives and access an afterlife. The hymn then begins in earnest, and you will note the beautiful poetic language. The following passage details the Aten rising in the east. Splendid you rise in heaven's horizon, O living Aten, creator of life. When you dawn in the eastern horizon, you fill every land with your beauty. You are beautiful, great, radiant, high over every land. Your rays embrace the lands to the limit of everything you have made. Being Ra, you reach to the very end of them. You subdue them for your beloved Son. Though you are far, your rays are on earth. Though one sees you, your strides are unseen. This is quite vivid language, describing the rising sun, how it touches everything, and yet cannot be touched back. It describes an omnipresent God who is both distant and inaccessible. The next section is a stark contrast to the previous one, an imperative for understanding the impact of the Aten religion on existing funerary beliefs. It reads, When you set in the western horizon, earth is in darkness, as if in death. Every lion comes from its den, all the serpents bite, darkness hovers, earth is silent, as their maker rests in the horizon. What does this mean? It means that once the Aten sets, the protection of its rays are gone. All the chaotic forces that exist are thus released into the wild, and those upon the earth cannot count on the Aten for help. The Aten is thus a day god, and if you follow him, you should probably stay home at night. Notably, this impacts funerary beliefs, and it is believed that the deceased stayed in the tomb at night as they were unable to travel to the afterlife, as there was none in this theology. Finally, one final note, the reference to the serpent could refer to Apophis, who was an Egyptian deity who encapsulated darkness and disorder, and who was defeated by Ra on his journey at night. Here it seems Apophis has free reign, and the Aten does not engage with him, as they no longer believe in this chapter of events. The next sections employ beautiful language upon the rising of the Aten in the morning. It reads, "As you drive away the dark, as you spread your rays, the two lands, i.e. Upper and Lower Egypt, are joyful. You've woken them, bodies cleansed and clothed. Their arms adore your appearance. The entire land sets to work, all beasts browse upon their herbs." It indicates that upon the rising of the sun, the people pray to the god before they commence their day. It continues, "Trees, herbs are sprouting, birds fly from their nests, their wings greeting your car, all flocks frisk on their feet, all fly up and alight. They live when you dawn for them. The fish in the river dart before you, your rays reach into the sea." These lines thus indicate that when the Aten rises, the world changes. Darkness and the associated chaotic forces are driven away, allowing life to leap into action, with birds flying and fish swimming. It presents an image of an abundance of life and joy that is widespread. Note the reference to the river, which would be the Nile, and the sea, which would presumably be the Mediterranean or the Red Sea in this context. The powers of the Aten are widespread. The Aten is more than light, however. The text continues, "Who makes seed grow in women, who creates people from sperm, who feeds the son in his mother's womb, and soothes him to still his tears, nursed in the womb, giver of breath, to nourish all that he makes when he comes from the womb to breathe. On the day of his birth, you open wide his mouth." Here, the Aten is explicitly linked with life and creation. The reference to sperm is reminiscent of the Egyptian god Atum, who is the god of creation, while the reference to breath and air could link the Aten to the god Amun. It would appear that the Aten has again absorbed some of the characteristics of other Egyptian gods. Moving on, "You supply his needs. When the chick in the egg speaks in the shell, you give him breath to sustain him. When you have made him complete, he comes out from the egg to announce his completion. Walking on his legs, he comes out. How many are your deeds, though hidden from sight?" Apart from the further description of creation, here again we find reference to how the god is omnipresent but hidden. In the last line where it states, "How many are your deeds, though hidden from sight?" This highlights the inaccessibility of the god for the ordinary Egyptian. The text continues to explore the notion of a universal god. The Aten is not just an Egyptian god, but a god for all. It reads, "O sole God, beside whom there is no other. You made the earth as you wished, you alone, all peoples, herds, and flocks, all upon the earth that walk on legs, all on high that fly on wings, the lands of Kor and Cush, the land of Egypt. You set every man in his place, you supply their needs, everyone has his food." So here, key points to take note is the explicit reference to a sole God who has been associated with all creation. He made all and is worshipped by all, including animals, birds, and peoples of foreign lands. The text continues, "Their lifetime is counted, their tongues differ in speech, their characters likewise. Their skins are distinct, for you made all people different. You made the flooding river come from the underworld to nourish people, for you made them for yourself, Lord of all who works for you." So here we have an inclusive hymn bonding all peoples, no matter their language or skin color, through the worship of the Aten and the fact he created them all. Just one further point, the reference to the flooding river may link this section to the Egyptian god Hapi, who is the god of the annual Nile flood, and through him Egypt was able to sustain agriculture and thus grow food. We could also link this to the primordial waters, which is linked to the god Nu, which is suggested by the idea it comes from the underworld. So here we have yet more characteristics of the Aten that can be attributed to other gods. The next section describes the Aten and its impact upon the seasons. How excellent are your ways, O Lord of eternity, for you give a flooding river from heaven for foreign people. Your rays nurse all fields. You made the seasons to foster all that you made, winter to cool them, heat that they may feel you. You made the sky to shine within it, to see everything that you made, you alone, shining in your form of living Aten, risen, radiant, distant, near. Made millions of forms from yourself alone. All eyes see you upon them, for you are the Aten of daytime on high. Here once again we have this interesting depiction of a sole god, who is simultaneously distant and near, who is overhead watching its creations. We may also have another reference to the god Hapi or Nu. It also makes apparent the importance of the sun rays. If the sun is what gives life, it explains, for example, why people pray when the Aten rises and why the temples of the Aten are open to the sky. This shift to the manifestation of the god has impacted how religious practices are physically carried out. Finally, the next section is key as it links Akhenaten to the Aten. It reads, "You are in my heart, there is no other who knows you, only your Son, whom you have taught your ways and your might. Those on earth come from your hand as you made them. When you dawn, they live. When you set, they die. When you rise, you stir everyone for the king." So here Akhenaten is the only person on earth who knows the Aten and who was taught explicitly by the Aten his ways. This thus makes Akhenaten the conduit to access the god. As it states, "There is no other who knows you," Akhenaten thus puts himself at the head of this religion, makes himself an invaluable member, and only through him can the ordinary Egyptian access the Aten. As you can see, there are a number of themes in this text, including monotheism, though as pointed out by Jan Assmann, it is cosmotheistic, as it is based on the worship of a cosmic power that is manifest in the sun. Natural imagery also dominates the text, together with descriptions of the Aten as a creator and universal god, and the Aten's intimate connection to the king. There is also a focus on life in the daytime, which is contrasted with silence and death at night. What then are the main takeaways from the hymn to the Aten? Firstly, it celebrates the Aten as the universal creator and sustainer of life. This is all life, and we find plants, birds, and fish mentioned alongside all people. Secondly, it explicitly states on numerous occasions that the Aten is the sole god, but if we read further, it becomes apparent that there are hidden references to the characteristics of other gods, such as Hapi or Atum. So we can state that the Aten is able to be the sole god because he has absorbed the characteristics of a diverse number of gods. However, please note that this is not a blanket statement for all gods, but only a select few have been suggested. Thirdly, it sets out that Akhenaten is the god's sole speaker, with unique knowledge of the god's plans. Akhenaten was created by the Aten, and the only one who knows his plans, and thus must be his earthly delegate. If people want to access this great God, who is described time and time again as being inaccessible, then we must turn to Akhenaten. In summary, what can we say the impact is on Egyptian religion? Firstly, the new Aten religion is monotheistic, as the Aten is the sole god, but more than this, the Aten is described as a universal god. Secondly, the religion is cosmotheistic as it focuses on the cosmic power of the sun. The sun is what causes life to grow and come into being, so we see the sun and life being celebrated time and time again. Thirdly, Akhenaten and Nefertiti are the conduits to access the god. This eradicates the need for a priesthood that could have power even over the king. As a result, we now have altars in private houses dedicated to the royal family. Thus, in both literary and archaeological evidence, we have a common underlying phenomenon, that of veneration to the Egyptian king. The king himself is trying to portray himself as a personal god to the individual, as the Aten is silent and inaccessible. Fourthly, there are prayers to the rising sun, as the world is created anew at every sunrise. There is now a new emphasis on the rising sun specifically. Related to this focus on sunrise, the Egyptian tombs are now moved from the west bank to the east bank, so they move from where the sun sets to where it rises. Next, the Aten temples are open to accommodate the focus on the cosmic power of the sun. This is a huge divergence, as the sacred cult image of the god was usually in the holiest of the holies, a dark, small, cramped sanctuary in the center of the temple. Here we have no cult image, and instead the temple is opened up to the sky to allow the sun rays to beam down. Finally, as a result of this, there is no netherworld or journey through the netherworld. As the sun arises new each morning, there is no primeval time, no pre-world or netherworld. There are no enemies who must be overcome in order to rise in the morning. As the sun does not travel through the netherworld, there is no light there and thus no life. The afterlife and the field of reeds do not exist. There are more implications than this, however. Throughout this video, it should have been made clear the importance of the hymn to the Aten to our understanding of Amarna theology.